What's up, legends? We have a big episode for you today. An AFL player from the early 2000s. Yes, Brodie Holland joins us, a Collingwood fan favourite. It was very interesting to talk to him about how the game has changed. I mean, some of the hits that were happening in the early 2000s compared to now was a different world. Barry Hall got 7 weeks for a punch back then. Brodie Holland played in a great team, a team with Collingwood where they played the Dynasty of Brisbane, played under Mick Malthouse with Nathan Buckley. We also go through this season how it could be anyone's trophy to win with the teams coming in and out of the 8. Brodie Holland's a great knowledge on the game, broke down a lot of the season really well. This was super interesting for me. I'm sure you guys are going to absolutely love this. Collingwood and all footy fans, let's get into it. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of the Unlaced podcast. As I always say, if you are new here, thank you for turning up. If you've come back again, I absolutely love you. Guys, you've had a big few weeks. We've got a lot of AFL content coming. It's the pointy end of the season. Why not? If you guys haven't given us a like, a comment, or a subscribe, get on Spotify as well and give us a review. I want to bump those numbers up. You guys' reviews have been so great so far. So if you haven't done that, please give us the time of day. Braden and I always speak about we love getting players on from the early 2000s or just past AFL players because, one, they can speak about some incidents that maybe they couldn't when they're playing, but also it was a tougher era. There was a lot of great players. Some of the best players we've seen in the last sort of 30, 40 years, might be some of the best players in the game's history. And today we've got a superstar on. He was a superstar for Collingwood, made his debut for Fremantle, Brodie Holland.
I haven't been called superstar too many times.
You were definitely
here more often.
You were definitely a fan favourite. How did that happen? Because are you still kind of loved by Collingwood? But I know you were loved by him at the time.
Yeah, look, I think it was probably a combination of things. I was very passionate about winning, and right. I obviously gave it everything I got and gave 100%, like most players do. But I think I just went that extra mile for the Collingwood Footy Club, and I feel like the fans could feel that.
I think you kicked like 3. Did you kick 3 in your first game or something like that? You had some. Your first season, I've done a bit of...
Actually, I think I did against... I think it was against Fremantle, my old team.
Which is the way to Collingwood fan hearts.
Yeah. Oh, look, I was pretty keen to obviously play well my first game for Collingwood. Plus, I was playing against a team that just traded me as well.
Yeah. Oh, was it against Fremantle? Really?
It was against Fremantle. I'm pretty sure it was my first game against... I should know that, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
But
we were just talking about head injuries off air. Maybe we're going to go...
Yeah, I know. Well, exactly. Maybe it is taking its toll.
We shouldn't claim that. We should claim that.
Yeah. But no, look, obviously, I kicked some goals and, I did a lot of tagging too. So I played on the better players and did some good jobs on some good players. Plus I did Dancing with the Stars as well. And that sort of boosted my popularity around the mid-2000s as well.
Was that whilst you were playing?
Well, I wasn't playing. That'd be hard to dance and actually play footy at the same time.
Wow, Pendlebury's been doing it for years.
Yeah, true, that's true. But yeah, well, technically it was because it was a pre-season, off-season leading into pre-season.
Oh, that's a ballsy move. Did you cop lip for that at all on the field?
A little bit, but just
people caught the gist of why it's fun.
Do you really care? Mate. I'm on mainstream TV. 2 million people are watching. Yeah, where are you?
Yeah.
You're here with me.
Yeah. Who's winning?
Just playing AFL footy.
Who's winning? Well, just on that, I mean, look, you were. I mean, you're still a Rooster, but you were a Rooster back in the.
Stop it.
Yeah, but I actually didn't know that you had a feature on Neighbours.
Oh, yes. Yeah, hopefully you're not going to bring up the grab on that because that is pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't know. But how does that even happen?
I was showing my kids this just very recently and I remember at the time thinking, actually, my acting's not too bad. But when you look back now, it is terrible. But, I had to play myself as Brodie Holland, the AFL player for Collingwood. And I, like a puff of smoke, came into this guy's dream. I was inviting him to play in the AFL Grand Final with me. It was just,
What the hell?
It was bizarre.
That's a strange one. Yeah, we've never had a person on the podcast that's been on the Neighbours cast, so that's a first. Mate, how are you going anyway? How's life? Obviously, you're well and truly post-footy, so we won't even go into that. But what is Brodie Holland doing today?
So I'm doing a bit of footy coaching. I've got a young family, obviously still married, which is good to Sarita. And got the 3 kids. I've got twin boys that are 13, a daughter 14.
Wow.
And, I'm just doing a bit of footy coaching. I coached VFL for a season last year with the Northern Bull Ants, which was fun and a bit massive challenge.
Yeah.
Taking a step back, gone back to my old club, Maribyrnong Park Footy Club to coach them and try and steer them back up to Premier Division.
How does one thing I actually noticed with coming from a a soccer background, and I actually played a game for Old Caulfield Grammarians. One thing I was so shocked with AFL was the camaraderie of groups and how positive everyone is and how everyone gets around each other.
Yeah.
How do you go about sort of having the AFL experience but coaching people that there probably is an investment but then maybe not the same level, they don't train as much? How do you try and maximise the best out of them?
Yeah, well, it's actually interesting. This group that I've got, they're pretty motivated and committed to the cause. So it's been quite easy from that point of view. I did coach Caroline Springs in the Western region for a year, and they were a great club too, but it took me probably a couple of years to find the group and recruit the right people in to get things going. Whereas the group that I've got now, they're ultra professional. They train like VFL players nearly. It's,
really?
It's pretty impressive to see, and it makes my job very easy.
Yeah. What's the what do you like about coaching the most? Because I think that's a big change. Even though it's never as good as playing, in my opinion. But
I think when I first started coaching, I was obsessed with winning, like I was when I was playing footy, and the obsession was strong. And I would, virtually do nearly anything to make sure that we'd win. Now it's changed a little bit. You want to see younger players develop, and you want to see them go off to play, VFL or even AFL. Like for instance, last year, coaching VFL, we had 2 players drafted that year from the Northern Bullants. That was a very rewarding thing to see players go on.
That's awesome.
Become great footballers. So I think that's probably the number one thing, and then maybe winning second.
Yeah.
Very close second.
Yeah, well, that's very true. That's very true. Well, you came on my – I've known, obviously, watched you play for ages. I actually grew up with Seb Gotch, who was Brad Gotch's son. So for some reason – when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I used to just end up in the Collingwood rooms after games. Everyone was my hero there. So I got to kind of be around your era and experience like just the club in itself and how it was kind of as prestigious as it is now. Back then I felt.
Yeah.
Like the Lexus Centre was around, which is the AIA Centre now. So all the sort of infrastructure was there. But just for you, I mean, going back to that sort of era was pretty special time to be a footy player, don't you reckon?
Well, I certainly was. Like it's probably the last of the era where you could play a rough and tough and to a certain degree get away with certain things. There was some really good footy played. The era where it was offensive into defensive and close scoring games, hard hitting still. But playing at Collingwood, coming through at Collingwood early 2000s, we've gone from being 14th, 15th best team in the late 90s to I think the year I got there we just missed the finals, and the year after we played in the grand final.
Wow!
So
went quick.
Yeah, obviously the emergence of the new Collingwood and the successful era, I was kind of part of that.
Oh, we're going to have to dabble straight into that. Yeah. But actually, I just remembered, I forgot to bring up, and you mentioned rough and tough, and it just came back to my mind, was the your boxing fight with Stevie Baker, which I don't want to spend too much time on the result because no one's a pro boxer here, and I've done it before, and I've been beaten, so I know how it feels. But the mental challenge going in and the training, that for me was quite confronting, especially when you're anticipating a fight, let alone you fighting a mate.
Yeah.
That's even weirder. Yeah, you guys were just going back and forth on Instagram.
Yeah. There's a bit of banter there. Some of it was friendly, some of it not so friendly. But no, it was all fun and games until we got in the ring. Look, we both train hard and we keep ourselves fit, generally speaking, post-footy. Unlike some
you
AFL
guys, I think, are on a bit of an extreme level with that too.
Yeah, so we get stuck in. We keep ourselves fit. With the whole build-up, amazing. Love the and Team Ellis are awesome. Anthony and the boys are fantastic. Did a fantastic job out there. The lead-up was awesome. Like I just loved training, doing a bit of sparring and so forth. I hated fighting. Like I didn't like the night. I didn't like, and it was quite confronting.
The sparring, sort of?
Just being there and the adrenaline going, crowd watching, and then you're about to fight one of your best
in
mates.
The face.
And the first couple of punches in the head, you're just going, this isn't cool.
Yeah,
this isn't
I don't understand. I mean, it's a newfound respect I have for fighters, but I think you got to be different. Because I hated it too. Yeah. Every second I was in there, I was like, I can't wait till it's finished.
Not to mention, I got a minute in and I thought I was fit, but I was cooked.
Gassed.
Like my lungs.
Happened to me too.
I couldn't even keep my arms up at all.
Happened to me too. Yeah. I wonder, I don't know if that's a mental drainage coming in or whatever it is, but I had the same thing.
Yeah, someone said to me, you've got to spar a lot. You've got to get hit a lot. You can shape up to someone who's as good, if not better than you, on many occasions leading into the fight. And I probably did 3, maybe 4 sparring sessions. And for a guy that's never fought before, probably probably should have prepared a little bit better from an actual specific fighting point of view.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. What? Are you glad you did it in the end though?
Glad I did it.
Yeah.
Glad I did it.
Yeah.
It was a good bit of PR for us. We got a bit of cash, and it was something that I've always wanted to do.
You ticked it off.
So we ticked it off, and we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, beautiful. Do you watch footy more or less now that you've been out of the game?
Oh, I reckon when I was in the game, I didn't watch footy much.
Yeah, a lot of players are like that, aren't they?
I wasn't right into it. I'd probably just watch, replays of your own game and watch your own highlights and make sure that, you can improve on your game during the week and practice a few things. I'll watch every single Collingwood game, obviously religiously. I always watch now. Talking about, and I watch every single Friday night game pretty much.
You're a life member as well at Collingwood, aren't you?
Not a life member.
What do you get? Well, you played 100 games. What is that?
I don't get anything, to be honest. Actually, I've got a bit of a.
Let's talk about that because
I've got a violin story for you if you want to hear.
Well, I do, because just on this, we had Adam Treloar on, and he's 3 clubs, obviously been a superstar. He's never played 100 games for one of the clubs, 96 for Collingwood.
Yeah.
And he's always wanted the 100 because I thought it meant like obviously father-son.
Well, father-son, 100, but life membership's 150. So there's a couple. There's a few categories that you can get life membership. One is having 10 years of service. I was at Collingwood for 8 years. Second, you can play 150 games. I played 120 games.
Yeah.
Winner best and fairest. I finished second in the best and fairest.
Yeah, in 2005, we're going to go into that.
Or win a premiership, and we came runner-up.
Jesus Christ.
I've literally missed it by that much.
That hurts. That hurts. Yeah, why do you, it's probably obvious, but is it footy's just all-consuming when you're in the AFL that you just can't be arsed watching every game?
I think
or
that's
just
what it is. It's just on top of you all the time, and you feel like it's a little bit overwhelming. It's footy, and you feel like you have to have your head out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas now for me as a coach and as someone who's not in the inner sanctum, and I'm talking footy and that, but I'm at local footy, so it's not 24 hours a day. So it's a good dose for me now. But I think I've sort of fallen back in love with the game since I finished. There was probably a patch when I first finished footy that I was completely over footy, and I was glad that I was out of it. But now I'm loving football again. Have you
this just came to my head, have you had much to do with Lachie Schultz at all?
No, not at all.
I haven't spent much time with him, but he's one of the best blokes going around. Absolute ripper. But he had your journey, essentially.
Same.
Yeah, exactly.
All the good blokes come from Fremantle to Collingwood, actually.
Well, I think one of the things he said to me, without sort of giving too much away about, was he was just more amazed at how different it is at Collingwood. Like just everything's under a magnifying sort of glass, and you're pretty much being watched everywhere. Everything you do. And it's probably taken him a little bit of time to get used to it, even though he's playing well and kicking goals. But like if you were just coming from that position, you can probably relate to it. What was it that either helped you or, if you were giving him advice or someone of that nature?
It's interesting you said that about being, under the microscope at Collingwood, because I felt when I first went to Fremantle, I remember driving down the street and I got pulled over like a random policeman pulled me over for no reason, just a random license check. And he goes, "Oh, you're the young fella from Fremantle, all the best, mate, blah, blah, blah." And then I walk down the street and someone else said, "Oh, good luck, Brodie," blah. And I'm going, what the hell's going on here?
Oh, right.
And I felt like I was probably the 44th best player on the list, but people knew who I was in Fremantle.
Right.
Whereas when I first got to Collingwood, I'd already played 36 games in 3 years.
Yeah.
And it took probably a couple of years before anyone knew who you were.
Oh, really? That's weird.
So you could go out and Collingwood supporters would know who you were, but there's a lot of other people that wouldn't. So that was. Remember, there is a lot of other teams here in Melbourne. You got to share. You got to share that other sports, and there's celebrities around the place in WA. All you've really got is you've just got footy players. It's just West Coast and Fremantle, and that is it. So I suppose it depends on how you look at it. I suppose where he's coming from, it is relaxed Western Australia.
Maybe
you can still do things without getting to strife, and everyone's a bit more relaxed with their approach. Maybe that's what it is. But, it's interesting how he looks at it.
Yeah. What's your take on this AFL season? Because it feels like I think the AFL will be rubbing their hands because it feels like just one of the most open seasons where the results have flipped from the 6 weeks before, the ladder's changing. How have you seen it? Have you seen a season like it?
If I can just talk about media and journalists for a moment and into that, the one thing that's shitting me at the moment is they're out of form, they can't make the finals, or these guys will win it, they're at Sydney are unstoppable. You got to start commentating these things because if you have 3 or 4 of your best players out with the game plan, the modern contemporary game plan that is in play at the moment with the 6-6-6 and with the umpires throwing the ball up quickly, with the kick-ins going in straight away, if you're 5% off, you get beaten by anyone. And then if your confidence is down 5% from week to week, you can lose 3 games in a row that you shouldn't lose. So anything can happen, like you said, and it is very even. So, like you look at Sydney at the moment, lost 3 out of the last 4, and they were nearly unbeatable 5-6 weeks ago.
People are writing them off.
That's right.
Which is crazy.
They literally didn't score.
The best 13 games I've ever seen. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Right. 71-0 against Port on the weekend.
Yeah, correct. I've never seen that.
Yeah, so and then all of a sudden Collingwood were like the worst team in the AFL and they're a rabble and everyone's retired now. They've won the last 2. And imagine if they win this week against Sydney and they're back in the frame. I mean, they might not make finals, but all of a sudden they've put themselves back in the frame after having a heap of bad injuries. So,
it's a good point.
So there's a lot going on. All I would say is from what I'm seeing at the moment is it's a quick game. It's a very offensive game. The game plans are very offensive. You get really challenged defensively in the modern game, and if you don't quite hold up, you can get scored against really, really quickly, and sometimes it's only 10 minutes that kills you.
Right.
And that's why I think we see this lopsided results.
I reckon your type of player would have absolutely blossomed in this era too. I think it would have suited. I mean, you suited the style back then, but it was just a different game. But now, specifically, your skill set
can get quite congested. They roll numbers in from both ends.
True.
I think being in close and with short, sharp hands, you have to be quick. So it probably would have suited me. Maybe should have been born, 15 years later. But no, I'm enjoying. I mean, I know a lot of people say, I don't like the game anymore because there isn't as much biffo. There is melees, shirt fronts.
Yeah.
Sling tackles and things. I remember, as a little fella growing up, that was the number one thing you did to try and take the player out of the game. You pick him up and swing him to the ground. Because I was a little fella, I used to get slung to the ground. As soon as you get rid of a hammer, wow, bang. And that's the one way you felt like you're. And you're in midair going, oh, here we go. I'm going to cop it here.
Now
brace
you cop
yourself.
weeks for that.
Yeah, you cop weeks for it. We had because I coached Lockie Plowman. For ex-Carlton. He's at Maribyrnong Park where I coach at the moment. He got done for a sling tackle, and it was one of those ones where the guy goes down, puts his shoulder down, and then, a second later, I may as well put my head down and see if I can get a free kick out of it. And then he didn't even get a free kick at the time, the guy, and then he goes, it gets 2 weeks at local level footy. And he's probably, the nicest person on and off the field you'll ever meet. I think he's been reported once in his whole AFL career in 150 games. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So it's, the game is getting a little bit cruel from that point of view.
That's great. I'm going to ask you a bit of a silly question because I think it's so hard to predict. But if you had to put money on it, if someone forced you to put money on who's going to win at this part of the year, who would you be? Like, who are you giving the nearest bet to come good? Because it is so open, isn't it? Like, it's very.
I think I'd say Brisbane. I think I'd say Brisbane because just the way they've come back, they sort of remind me of, I think it was Richmond that came back hard 2017. I think they won 8 or 9 in a row.
Bang.
And they look really hard to beat, like in any circumstances. I feel like that's that. Plus, I feel like there's all these players like the Lockie Neals of the world that, Andrews, they want to win one and they're desperate to win one and they're hardened, seasoned, mature men that just are desperate to get it done. They're going to finish top 4 by the looks of things now. They're going to be hard to beat. The only one outside of the 4 at the moment would be Bulldogs that I think, they look really strong for me. I reckon they've got the best side on paper and on potential as well.
Yeah.
They look strong. They've got a lot of good height at both ends. And the midfield is as strong as anyone's.
It seems like the Bulldogs are finally doing what everyone thought their list was capable of. Yeah. But just absolutely bashing teams and at the right time of the season.
Yeah, that's right. They had to tweak a few things and they got lobbed behind the footy, which was...
What has that done? Because from your analysis, knowing footy better than me, why has that changed?
If you ask all the... I've got a lot of Western Bulldogs, mates, because I coach in the Western region. So all the guys from Caroline Springs that I coached, most of them are Western Bulldogs. And they are always saying we're short a defender, tall defender. They've been saying it for years. And then this year, even with Keith, I think it was, that was out, Norton or Lob had to go back. One of them had to go back from mine. They probably just did it eight weeks too late.
Yeah,
really. And they finally put one of them back, and it's just really, obviously there's some other things that happened, some confidence things that happened, and players found some form, but that's probably been the number one move that's obviously, pushed them to where they are now.
Hey guys, just a quick pause in this episode to compliment our partners of the show. You guys know that I've been sponsored and supported by Dabble, the gambling agency, for a while now. This place has a special place in my heart because it is like the social network of gambling. You can follow superstars of the game, copy their bets. You might not know so much about a certain sport, but you can copy someone who does and increase your chances of winning some money. Obviously, if you're not a gambler, please only bet what you can and are willing to lose. Please dabble safely, gamble responsibly, as we always say. Just so you guys know, this year I've been taking over the streaming space at Dabble every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. Jake's Take is live. It is the wild, wild west of streaming. There's not too many sporting agencies or gambling agencies out there doing what we do. We put on a few bets throughout the show. We get some guests on. We have a lot of fun. It's all within the Dabble app. If you guys want to jump on board, the link is in the bio. Let's get back into the episode. Who's the player that you love to watch, or the players? Because everyone kind of would go to the Dacosses and things, but is there anyone that you love just watching?
In other teams,
In other teams, because I probably can pick your Pies players, obviously, but...
I'm just trying to think who I like.
Well, who at Collingwood are you loving watching?
I obviously like watching Nick Dacos play. I like watching Maynard play.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because I just feel like... he's one of the real genuine hard players. It's
110% every game he gives.
Intimidates the opposition. He follows up, gets in the opposition's face, but he's still a very good footballer as well.
And a bloody nicest bloke ever, which is even funnier.
Yeah, I like watching Chris play as well.
Yeah.
So they're probably the main ones. I like watching Petrarca play, obviously not this year, but
that was
just
crazy
the way he plays on the inside, and he can get the ball out to the outside and kick goals as a midfielder. So he's been good to watch as well. They're probably the main ones. I can't really...
What do you think, just speaking on Dacos, what do you think's changed for these players that have come in and like first bounce, they're ready?
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference?
Yeah, I played with a guy by the name of Paul Hazelby that was pretty good in the first year. That was a long time ago. That would have been 2000. 2000.
Was that his first year?
That was his first year.
Wow.
And he won best first year player that year. He was as good a first year player as you'll see, and not far behind Nick Dacos.
Really, good?
But he wasn't quick, and he was just a natural ball winner. Right. But he was, getting his 20 possessions a game and just dominating games of footy in his first year. So there was still that happening. I think because it's Collingwood, it's Nick Dacos. I think because he's got the attributes to be able to do things players can't do. That's
a really good point.
That's just, obviously he's put himself in a really good position by the way he's worked, but he's obviously got some pretty reasonable DNA that means that he can do that as well.
Yeah, that's very true. But I think they're the best kicks in the comp, the Dacos, aren't they? Like you probably know skill-wise. I've barely missed a target.
Yeah. For him,
actually crazy.
And that's probably an important part of the modern game now is quick disposals, be able to cut and kick quickly off 1 or 2 steps. I remember when I was still playing, people used to say, don't kick off 1 or 2 steps. You've got to get balance. But, when the game's quick and you've got to get rid of it you've got to be able to do it. And he's the best in the business and cutting through the middle when he's got most players would take that extra half a second and then it would get chopped off in the middle of the ground, but his other still hit that. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, it's been, 16 years since you've played in the AFL, which is flown, but also isn't that long of a time for the significance of how the game's changed. In your eyes, what have been the biggest changes for you from your sort of era to now?
I was playing in that era where you didn't really know if you were allowed to shirt front or not. No one had really said anything, and all of a sudden players are starting to get done for shirt fronting when in the rules you could bump someone as long as you didn't bump them high.
Well, yeah, but we said before, Byron. This is you played in the Byron Pickett era where Barry Hall threw a punch, got 7 weeks.
Yeah,
like it was physical as
that's
fuck.
Right. Like I tagged Paul Williams and. I think it was in 2003. He jumper punched me a couple of times, and I just decided to hit him back, and I got 2 weeks for punching someone.
Did you really?
Which was bad, and I apologise. Sorry about that. But Willow's now a good mate of mine. But you know, like I'd probably, looking at it now, I'd probably get 6 weeks for that.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't get injured, I'd probably get 5 or 6 weeks for that
okay.
now. But I also, I think 2006 was the year, the elimination final against Western Bulldogs. I ran off the square and I ran through Brent Montgomery and I actually knocked him out. I didn't hit him high with the shirt front, but his head hit the ground.
Oh, rough.
And he got knocked out. And I did get 4 weeks for that, but probably now it'd be 8.
Yeah. That's one thing look, I shouldn't say I missed that about the game, but that was one of the big things. Like Damien Hardwick did it. I remember Robert Harvey in the 97 or 98 grand final, someone ran off the square and just clocked it.
Yeah.
Like that was part of the game.
That was, and you could do it. And
Matthew Lloyd, I think,
as long as your elbow was tucked in,
there was a
it didn't matter
technique.
how you hit, how you hit them. Really, it's just as long as you just got to keep the elbow in, you'll be fine, mate. Just hit them hard.
I actually have just been flicked a question I got to ask you. Probably we should just touch on this topic because you mentioned when you came off the square and you got Brent Montgomery with your hip or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened with the rest of that game with him? I feel like it's a bit of a stitch up.
This is a Bulldog supporter, this ain't actually, for sure. Well, he did get near best on ground that day and kicked 4 goals, which is, when you think about it, that is an amazing effort. Like, he's just been knocked out. He probably doesn't even remember playing.
That was allowed in your era, though. Yeah. Like, that wouldn't happen now.
No, you can't. You couldn't do that now. So if that happened now, he would be off and the sub would be on, and we probably would have won that game.
That's crazy. So, and I'm like Nathan Murphy, obviously, I think that's a huge loss for Collingwood as well that people don't speak about enough. Correct. But, you know, those type of retirements, they weren't really profound in your career. They never happened. Blokes, and you mentioned you got concussed a few times and went back out there. I mean, that obviously your view on that might be sort of, you know, it's better for the game and so forth. But when you think back to your time, do you look back with a little bit of like, oh shit, was that stuff was happening, or was that just normal for you guys?
I think you just didn't hear about it as much. Like, obviously it wasn't, you know, commercially in media, it wasn't spoken about unless it was really obvious. But you'd kind of have players that you probably think back now, I wonder if he was concussed that day, but during that week, you know, he might have been had a bit of concussion come off and you wouldn't know anything about it. The media wouldn't even report it. And then you just move on to, I'm feeling good, I'm ready for training, let's get on with the next week, and you just get on with it. So yeah, it's a bit different now, obviously, and they've got to tread carefully with it. There's no question about that. Thinking about the long-term ramifications of all of that, and obviously they have to go down this track. They have to look after themselves and the health of their players, the AFL. So that's just the way it is, unless they have some sort of rebel group or rebel league where
it's just hard to stop. I think. Like, I mean, we spoke about it before. As much as you never want a player to get hit in the head, there's got to be an element of liability on the player that steps on the field as well. There is. The fella from Geelong, the forward pocket, a red-headed fella. Gary Rowan. Gary Rowan knocked out Cameron. That's right, he did too. He knocked out Cameron. With it looks like he's actually half shirt fronted. He should have got weeks. He should have got weeks. Now, if he's an opposition player, he's probably going to cop 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. That's a really good point. So should he get weeks for knocking his own player out? So these things are going to happen, but I think the AFL got no choice to do what they're doing. I think, you know, this is the way they're going. And look, I know because of all this stuff is being, you know, obviously getting a lot of media coverage now. A lot of parents are. Like, I'm at a football club at the moment. What's your position on that? Because you're seeing it from both sides. You see a lot of kids with helmets these days. You never used to see it. I know a lot of mums and dads are sending their kids to other sports like soccer and you know, basketball and these other things as well. I think the game's still in good shape, but there is a little bit of fear factor out there with the whole head injury thing at the moment at that level right through. So the game's changed a lot from that point of view. Obviously, the game's got a bit quicker. It's got more condensed with numbers. So, you know, I mean, that's starting to, in some ways, open up a little bit again. And Richmond, you know, they draw when they were successful, they were stretching and drawing their forwards forward so they could open up space. But you know, pressing and covering off and defensive layering and making sure that you know, players hold their lanes as well. That's something that they look at closely now. So it's there's a lot more tackling done, even though tackles were probably
harder and more physical to a certain degree because you weren't allowed to sling. There are far more tackles now because it's more congested at both ends of the ground.
Yeah, I don't know if you would. I'm assuming you probably missed Dusty and Tom Hawkins, but they're two things you probably should mention just because they both retired.
Yeah.
Watching Dustin Martin's, it's been pretty special. I mean, what's sort of been your read of him? Particularly,
he's been very consistent from a young age too. He probably didn't hit his straps till his sort of fourth or fifth year, but he was still finishing top 5 in the BNF in his first few seasons.
Was he really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
He's probably the best finals player we've ever seen.
That's nuts.
And nearly like it was boring for him during the year.
Yeah.
And every year he'd sort of start average. I don't know if you remember back, but his first 5 or 6 games, everyone said, "Oh, Dusty's form's off, blah blah blah." And he just kept getting better and better. And then by the time he hit finals, he was impossible to stop. He was impressive. He was that modern day player, where midfielder that plays centre forward and is able to obviously hit the scoreboard. He never really played on anyone, but didn't really need to because they needed to play on him.
Seriously.
So he just, obviously go from stoppage, roll forward and just do damage and he had the license to do that. It's impressive to watch, and it was a new style of game plan that we hadn't seen before, this fast, frenetic, ball movement from Richmond, and it really suited the way he played. So, mate, he's an absolute star, obviously.
Did you say you got twin boys?
Yes.
Are they both into their footy?
One plays footy, one plays soccer. Actually.
There we go.
Yeah.
I tell you what, the soccer player, if he plays footy, watch his spatial awareness.
Yeah.
He will get touches where you're like, oh, he's in a different position. He's reading what's happening.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing I noticed with the difference in sports, particularly at a young age. Because soccer's a smaller field.
Yeah.
You have to find the areas.
I played soccer till I was 13.
Do you reckon it helped?
And then moved across. Definitely, yeah. Definitely with your movement, speed, reaction time.
There you go.
So, yeah, it definitely helped.
Who would you, so just to, what I was getting to with the boy that does play, I mean, if I'm sure you're integral in coaching him and giving him advice and stuff, who's the kind of player you sort of mold him to be, in the sense of like who's the perfect footy player that you kind of these are the ones you
my daughter
watch?
plays too. She's a bit of a jet.
Is she really?
Yeah, my son Bowie plays footy. He's a goal sneak. He cheats forward. He cheats forward a bit and gets ahead of the ball.
Wonder where he gets that from.
I used to be a bit like that too. But he sort of reminds me of I don't know who you would say, but.
Do you tell him like certain players that he should watch just to kind of pick up things here and there? Because
you know what, I don't, because they don't like watching the game. Like,
really?
I wasn't big on watching, but I used to watch. I used to be a Carlton supporter, believe it or not. But I used to watch. I used to watch from when I was 7 or 8 onwards. I'd watch their games, but I'd sometimes get bored after half a game, especially if they were winning or whatever. But I'd always sit down and watch a bit of it. They don't watch it, but I think. I'm just trying to think who'd be most like. But who's a goal sneak at Collingwood at the moment? Like Schultz type, probably like a Schultz type.
Really? There you go.
He doesn't tackle like Schultzy, but we can work on that.
Well, how many games did you play? Was it 155 or something like that?
155. Yeah.
You kicked 100.
Did you just Google that?
I've got it. I've got it here on my notes. That's why. Yeah. But you kicked 141 goals.
Yeah.
You kicked a lot of goals.
Yeah.
I think your first season you kicked 28 in the first 20. You played 21 games.
Yeah.
Which
I was going to a goal a game for a long time. Then I started tagging and playing a little bit in defence as well.
How did that conversation go down? Like, is that I always find that like I'm really impressed with players that sacrifice themselves and do that, because kind of hurts the ego a little bit when you know you can do it and get your own ball.
My ego, because I actually went to the coach and asked if I could do it. Because what happened was I was playing forward pocket, and then Alan Didak came in, got drafted and was playing well, and then you had Leon Davis in the forward pocket as well. So I was like, fighting, and they were like very creative, if you can remember. And I was sort of in and out of the side for some reason at that stage, missed the 2002 grand final, and I actually went that next year, got myself really fit, went to the office and saw Mick Malthouse and said, I want to tag, and he said, we'll give you the opportunity to do it if you're fit enough and your form's good enough. And then it was. And then I remember my first ever tagging job was against Matty Bode. I don't know if you remember him from Adelaide.
No.
And then shortly after it was Brent Harvey and Shane Crawford and guys like that.
That's right, the Ben Cousins and
that was
all that
a
era.
challenging year, but it was one of my best, most consistent seasons.
Oh, we have to break that down a little bit because I did want to ask you about Collingwood this year, but I'll get to that. But just on that, tagging in that era, we kind of spoke to Bakes a little bit about this, and he was so big on Ben Cousins running him off his feet. Who were the guys that up close you were just like, this guy's unbelievable?
Oh, there was a few. Like I got done over by Simon Black in the grand final, and I played on Ackermanis a lot. He was quite good. Brent Harvey was a runner. I think the first time I played on him, I had him, I got him, and then after that, next he was ready for me. And you just run me ragged the next couple of times after that. So some good players. Chris Judd as well. Shane Crawford was. He was probably the best runner out of all of them.
Well, he used to run like half a marathon or just under, didn't he, in some of his games?
He literally, Chris Judd was a good runner, but he was quick. Like you could keep with him when he got to the ball, he would just break away. He was just too quick.
Yeah.
Whereas Crawford was just at this 3/4 pace the whole day, and he just didn't stop running.
Jeez.
So every time he approached the ball or he got to the ball, you're too tired to tackle him, even if you got the footy in hand, you're too tired to kick the ball. Or I was just literally handballing to someone 1 metre away, just give it to someone else who's got more energy than me.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. I always remember that game as a catalyst because I felt like I had this weird sort of sense of confidence after that I could run with anyone.
Wow.
After that. So once I played, even though I think Crawford had 27 on me that day, then I think I had 21 touches myself. But
That's a pretty good day.
But I reckon all my possessions were just because it landed in my lap, just because I was just
running.
I was near him, and and I was getting possessions out of default. But definitely was like a great experience that year, and Crawford helped me, instill a bit of confidence in myself, knowing that I can do jobs on those type of players.
Do you almost have to make your whole life about fitness when you dedicate yourself into that role? Like there's almost. You probably have to be the fittest player on the field if you're chasing those blokes, don't you?
No, you do. And someone gave me a bit of advice. Might have even been Gavin Brown at one stage, and he said you've always got to think about what your opponent is doing down the road. So if you're playing on Chris Judd or you're playing on Brent Harvey or whoever that is, in the coming weeks, you've got to know that you're well equipped to play on these guys and stay on them, and actually not just play a role, but actually play better than them or get footy on them. So I always thought that, what are they doing on a Monday? And then I became obsessed with going, I need to do more than what they're doing, and then obviously training accordingly.
That's the level. Yeah. That's the level it takes. That's awesome. I love hearing that stuff because that's like real athlete insight. We have to talk about Collingwood, your mob this year. Obviously, last year was pretty special. We've covered that so much on this podcast, but You've been in a team where you've lost the grand final, you've had this sort of energy of what that's like to come back the next year. Winning one must be a bit different, but you mentioned injuries. Just your overall sort of feeling with the Pies team, probably up until now, how it's been, why they are where they are, and your expectation maybe going forward.
Yeah, obviously they started slow. Generally speaking, most premiership teams start slow the next. Remember, you got 4 weeks behind the other teams,
True. The round zero thing I don't think helped them either. Like that whole sort of start to the season was a bit
they finished later than everyone else. So then you got injuries to get over. There might be a couple of operations and this, that and the other, and then you got to get yourself in fitness shape as well. And then, there's the management process of the mindset of players are just coming off a premiership, then starting at zero as well. But then, not quite getting off to the right start. And then obviously they got rolling again and started getting some wins. I think they got 4 in a row there at one stage or whatever it was.
Yeah, they did, yep.
And they started looking good, but then you start losing a few key players with injuries, the Goeys, the Coxes, and these guys, go out of the side. And, there's much talk about Coxie and, I think Kane Corns, who made a ridiculous statement, he only gets 7 touches a game, he's no good. I mean, if you're basing everything on possessions, you're kidding yourself. Like him out of all people should know. I mean, I love that. I had games where I had 11 possessions and I kept the best, player in the opposition down to 15 who was getting 30 touches a game, and they gave me 5 votes, in the best and fairest that week. So, but for structure, Cox is huge. Like you look at it now, like I don't know what the figures are now, but I was doing. I actually did a little reel on this on Instagram. He since the start of 2022, when Fly came on board, Collingwood are at 75% win ratio when Cox is in the team.
Wow.
All right, and he's back at around, I think, 72% this year when he's in this team, and that is, remember, minusing the 2 draws as well.
Wow.
So, if you take the draws away, he's going at about 20% loss ratio for the year with the 2 draws in play.
Do you reckon, being as tall as he is, it doesn't matter what he does, you've always got to have an eye on him.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes he doesn't play that well, but he just takes 2 marks inside 50 and
takes people out of the game too.
Because there's always that moment where you go, there's pressure on the ball between the arcs, so I just got to unleash the ball forward and high as long as possible and get some territory. And he's just there with the long levers, and he's a good chance to mark it. If he doesn't, he gets the arms chopped, gets a free kick. Worst case scenario, they lock the ball in, they're able to reset and catch a breath again, which I hadn't been able to do, especially when Mychek was out of the team as well. Remember, Mychek's only 6'2.5", 6'3".
Yeah,
he's not a giant. McStay's been out. They bring 2. Their side looks completely different with McStay and Cox forward of the footy.
Tell you what, you as a pure Collingwood man and the Collingwood fans listening, the way Carlton lost, it's not just one beating him, it's the way they lose too.
Yeah.
I think I heard Peter Dacos speak about he wants Carlton to be winning for the first 3 quarters and then Collingwood to snatch it with 2 minutes to go. That was the way he wanted to win. He said that in a pre-game press conference. That was a special game for so many reasons. The way it ended, Pendle's 400th.
Yeah.
Did you go?
It was pretty amazing. I didn't go in the end because we had a big win at Maribyrnong Park, and I was out in the western suburbs for that game, and I had a couple of tickets. I ended up giving it a couple of players because I was exhausted. I thought I'm spewing on missing this, but I'm just going to go home and watch it.
I love watching them footy on TV. Yeah. I don't know. So don't get me wrong. I love going to the game, but something about just sitting at home watching it's the best.
Yeah, I just watched it at home, but it's pretty amazing because I played in Pendle's his first game.
I was going to, you overlapped. He was what, 07?
He's 06 his first year. 06.
Wow, so you had a couple of years with him.
For 3 years. I played in some really interesting games over my career, that I will always remember, like the grand finals, the Anzac Day games. I played in Fremantle's first ever derby win over West Coast. Some games you don't realise how important they are till you're finished. Right. And I played in Pendle's first ever game, and 400 plus games later, he's still going. It's incredible, crazy. Really. I was looking at vision of that game, and he actually did some incredible things in his first game.
Did he really?
Like a couple of his, trademark balks around players. He did get caught holding the ball with about 30 seconds to go trying to take on 3 blokes.
It's because he just backed himself.
He's starting to find confidence in his first game already.
That's kind of impressive.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be watching that in a first-year player?
I reckon Malthouse would have been watching that when he got caught on the ball going, this is a good thing because his kid's got some rare confidence for an 18-year-old.
What was probably the most notable thing about him for you early in his years? Because everyone talks about his sort of mentality and his dedication, but his skill level seems quite elite as well.
I'm glad you mentioned this because I'm sure people wouldn't know what I'm about, how I'm going to answer this, but I think it was a game again. I think it was Queen's birthday Melbourne game, and I was injured with Achilles. It was a couple of games after the Brisbane game when he played his first game. And I remember sitting up and just watching him, and I thought, I'm just going to keep my eye on Pendle's here and make sure his running patterns are looking good. And I just remember watching him from the forward pocket. They got the footy, and he ran all the way with a Melbourne player, sprinting all the way into defence. And then we got the ball back, and he ran all the way back at full pace into the half-forward line, and then the same bloke got the ball again, and he put pressure on him, put pressure on another player, and then ran it all the way back to the back pocket again with that player the whole way through. So just side by side, I'm thinking, most kids at 18 years old, I know what I was like at 18, I wasn't picking anyone up.
Yeah.
I was just running around chasing kicks and trying to find my way in the system. He literally already had that nous and defensive mindset to go, this is my job here to run with this guy. And he didn't get a possession out of it, but I just remember thinking, I've never seen anything like this for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably why he got so many games early, because people like you and the coaching stuff are picking that up. Yeah,
that's right. I remember going at halftime and just go, mate, that was incredible what you've been doing out there. Just keep doing what you're doing because, it was amazing.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool grab on Pendles. Just to go a bit more into your year and your time, because it was a special time at the Pies. You spoke about not just the time of going to the grand finals, but you played with some greats of the game had some really top players in your team. I mean, you go back to those days, and you might even can touch on Freo, but who were the players that you loved playing with?
Yeah.
Like there were some real superstars back then.
Scott Burns was a good one to play with.
Scott Burns, wow,
He was tough. Got plenty of footy and just was a great leader. I love playing. Obviously, Bucks was great to play with.
Nathan Buckley was almost the face of the AFL back then, in a sense.
He just always keep you accountable and keep pressure on you to keep performing. So he was obviously amazing. Anthony Rocker was awesome. Like he was probably, I mean, he was obviously very highly rated, but he was he was as good as a centre half forward there was in the game at that time.
Could kick it from anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
He was probably nearly our most important player
really
in the team. And when he didn't play 2003, we were $1.70 favourites to win that grand final, and he was out suspended. And
that hurts.
Then we got beat easily, and I think he would have made a huge difference to that side that day.
Yeah, they would have picked that. They walk in with a bit more confidence knowing he's not around. Leon Davis was actually my favourite player growing up.
Yeah,
he just did things that no one else did. I mean, you think you had Didak, you had James Clements as well. He was a great centre half back.
I came across in the same trade with him at Fremantle. He was the best defender I ever played with.
What made him so good? Because I feel like some of those there's certain defenders that don't get spoken about enough. I mean, Alex Rance has already been forgotten about. Like it's crazy.
He was 6'2.5" and can run. He was the quickest player on the list. He was probably the best kick, over 60 metres. He could kick a drop punt this high, 1-on-1. When he used to go back shoulder, he was impossible to beat. He towed up James Hird on numerous amount of occasions. James Hird used to take himself out of the forward line and straight into the mid when he knew that he was lining up on James Hird.
That's a compliment.
So he's the best defender I've played with. But James Clement played occasionally as a forward with Fremantle Dockers, and I think 2 weeks in a row he kicked 6 goals when they were going poorly 2 weeks in a row as a full forward, centre half forward. And then because halfway through the next game they moved him back to full back because the opposition were just destroying us. So pretty handy footballer.
What was Mick Malthouse was obviously a coach that we've spoken about a little bit. You were in the four walls with him and obviously probably had a great relationship with him because you played so much footy under him. What made him special? What made him sort of different to I guess other coaches in the game?
Yeah. Look, I think he was hard but fair. I think he was probably the first of the coaches that treated everyone differently based on personality. I think that's where he was great. Obviously he had the Rat Pack he had to treat carefully because you get one of the Rat Pack offside, then you get them all offside. So I reckon he tread carefully around that group. Obviously, you got some Indigenous boys that have some cultural differences and they want to get home on occasions and and he was great with the Indigenous boys. And there's you obviously get some young kids that want to go out and have a good time a little bit, and he'd come down hard on them when they did the wrong thing, but he understood that the AFL system starves you of your adolescent years, so he was conscious of those things, and Chris Tarrant, and I were good mates when I first got to Collingwood, and he was a gun, but he probably had some things that were going on outside. Had some misdemeanors.
Still kicking 8 goals on the weekend, though, wasn't he?
Yeah. He had a couple of misdemeanors in his first couple of years, but Mick was really good to him and really nurtured him through it, and he came out the other side better for that. So he was really good at that, at managing people, and he also got really good coaches around him, especially at Collingwood. And maybe this is where it fell down at Carlton. Like you think about the coaches that he had Guy McKenna, he had Dean Laidley, he had Brad Scott. All these guys went on to obviously become coaches in their own right. So he had good people around him that would also challenge him as well. Alan Richardson as well.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. It's interesting because like a lot of people past players that speak to Mick now or are involved with him, the way they treat him is like a father figure. Yeah. Like a lot of people really have that respect for him, which I think says a lot about the time that they would have had together. Yeah,
definitely. No, he was like that to me as well, and he was that's what he was like, and. Sometimes when your form was down, he's going, what's up, Dutch? Is there anything wrong? Is there anything you want to have a chat about? And he'd break it down and what do we need to do to get in form, mate? And you'd think he was going to come over and spray you, but he just put his arm around you. And you just felt like that next week, you just felt obliged to play well.
Yeah.
Because of the way, he spent his time with you and the way he's treated you that week. I mean, I had a guy, I'm not going to mention his name, but at Fremantle, a coach that was just like, he'd give you a barrage. After every game, he'd literally go through every player and just, if you played well, he'd go, just a game, mate, just a game.
Do you reckon those coaches are done now in the modern day, in a sense?
I think so.
It seems like you've got to be way more personal with players.
I think there's the odd spray, but they're more shock treatment now, the spray. Yeah, I think when you look at some of Hardwick's sprays every now, like it's still there, but you're not doing it all the time.
It's with an intention.
Yeah, it's like once every 6 or 7 weeks, just to get a bit of a shock out of the playing group and to get them to do something, to get them to do something a little bit extra. But if you keep doing that week after week, it wears off. Yeah. It wears off in the second week now. So you just got to educate, players. Players are self-motivated now. They're all fit. They all want to do well. So I mean, there's a new way now, isn't there?
Yeah. I hate to ask this, but just the losing grand final, we'll build on this to the Brisbane midfield and even the West Coast midfield of that era just to get some insight of how tough that was. But just that feeling, like that being so close, I've kind of experienced a little bit, not obviously absolutely nowhere near to your level, but how hard, I think I understand how hard it is to win one. Like in the wave with Collingwood for a few years, they lost a point to Sydney in SCG, beat GWS by a point last year, and then they go on and it could be anyone's game in a sense.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so hard, but I mean, just that feeling, that going all that way, and then you play a team that's in a dynasty. Yeah, it must just be a weird feeling.
Yeah, look, a lot of things need to go your way. There's no question about that. I think in that first year that I didn't play in, Jason Cloak, who had a stellar season, he got reported, and then the next year, Anthony Rocker got reported. So, those things, like when we lost that first grand final by, was it 8 or 9 points or whatever it was in the end, they're hard. They're certainly hard to win. You can run into the wrong team at the wrong time. There's a lot of good teams like Essendon of, what was that, 99 and 2000.
Yeah, they were almost went invincible, weren't they, for a little bit?
2001, they were the best team and lost it.
Yeah.
Obviously won 2099, they were the best team and didn't even make a grand final.
Yeah, and then they won it in 2000?
Yeah, won it in 2000. So there's a potential. They probably should have won 3 in a row, really. With
it's a scary team. Their spine was elite.
Yeah, that's right. And so you take your head off to Richmond, don't you, when you look at what they've been able to do, and even Geelong, and Brisbane
100%.
As well. And Brisbane nearly won a 4th one as well. They were a pretty special team. No, there's no question about that, with a bit of help from Fitzroy as well.
There we go. That's a cheeky dig. Yeah. Who was the best player you've ever played against?
Best player I've ever played against?
Because, it's a really hard question for your era.
It's a hard question, really hard question. But, I feel like Simon Black...
he doesn't get spoken about enough, does he?
Chris Judd.
Yeah,
would probably be the best. Look, there's just so many. It's hard. The running types, I found it hard with, like the Brent Harveys, Chris Judds, and Shane Crawfords. They're all stars.
Yeah. Well, this might be a little bit easier, but just best player you played with.
Oh, I'd still have to say Nathan Buckley.
What was it about Bucks? Because everyone knows Bucks was like this, just workhorse, militant kind of with his training.
He was. He really was. Like, I was amazed by, I just thought, is there ever going to be a session that you just go at 93%? Because he was just like 100 the whole time. And probably if you asked him, he'd probably say at certain stages with injuries that might have been his downfall, because he just really wanted to challenge himself all the time. But he was very robotic in that manner, and so professional. Like, it was like he was superhuman in the way that he trained. It really was.
Yeah, but I think his skill level, his kicking, infield kicking. I mean, I could sit back and watch a YouTube highlight reel of it. It was incredible.
It had an incredible kick. Just elite, really trademark kicking technique as well, with the rounded shoulders right over the footy.
Yeah.
Very rarely missed a kick. Obviously missed a few shots on the run here and there, but like field kicking, it was a rarity to see him miss a target.
Yeah. Well, probably got one more for you from this is what we always ask the guests on the Unlaced. It's sort of a test, 3 key things to people or successful people in sport, business, whatever. Resilience, drive, or ambition. We kind of think you need all three. But if you look back on your career, what was sort of the one that was your cornerstone out of those three? Resilience, drive, ambition.
So resilience,
drive, and
ambition.
Which one did you lean on the most throughout your career to get you sort of 155 games?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Makes everyone think, mate.
It is, because they're all similar in a way as well.
Everyone's answer is different.
I think I was more resilient than anything, because I had moments where I just couldn't be stuffed.
Yeah.
And turning up to training, and I still did.
It's a tough career.
It was my
man.
last year at Fremantle. I just didn't even feel like playing footy at all, and I nearly felt like I wanted to give up footy at there one stage, and I thought, I'll just keep going. I'll just keep rocking up.
Yeah.
So I think resilience, and then through resilience, I found consistency in my training, and then once I got that consistency, then I felt like my training and standards went to the next level. So then I stayed resilient through that whole process.
That's a great answer. I know the Collingwood fans would have absolutely loved this. So I hope you guys getting a player on from the early 2000s when Collingwood was in full flight and having your views on the games, which I reckon you should do more of, because when I've heard you speak about the pies and stuff, really interesting. Like a few of the things you broke down today, mate, I picked up some things, so it was awesome.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me in.
No worries, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Give us that subscribe and like, and we'll keep coming forward with the AFL content.